You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hi, welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm Joe Slepsky, your host. And with me this week is a new friend out here in Los Angeles. He is an actor. He is a cosplayer. He is Paul Galliano. Paul, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Thank you very much. Now, I met Paul out here at Golden Apple Comics. He popped in one day, and he came in looking for some G.I. Joe comics. Is this true?
That is very true. Looking for that complete collection.
And which ones? Do you remember which ones you bought?
At the time, this is how much of a Joe fan I am. I already had them all, except I was looking for the one that I thought came out that week, but apparently it doesn't come out till next month, so I'm sitting here waiting.
And you were talking about the IDW Complete Collections, right?
That's right. I'm anxiously anticipating Volume 9.
They're really good books. So when Paul was shopping for the Joe books, I was like, hey man, I do a G.I. Joe podcast, and you should check it out. And he has been an active member of the Joe community ever since. He's been retweeting and liking the Instagram posts and all that stuff, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And I got to say, I've really loved listening to the show. Like, it's fantastic. I love what you've done. And just because I listened ever since that day when I met you, and I was like, all right, I want to get into this. Started with episode 1 all the way through, and I love everything that you've done. Like, it's just amazing along the way how you've, like, tweak the format a little bit and just, done this or that or changed the style of this. And everything you've done has just been amazing to make the show even better. It was great from the start, and now I love it. So,
oh, dude, thank you so much. That means a lot. Because
it's
I like to think it's always a work in progress, and always coming up with new ideas. There's a couple big ones that I know would be great. Like, I know if I do them, it'd be awesome. But if I do it, it's a fair amount of work.
Yeah.
And so every week that goes by, I'm like, I'll get to it next week. I got plenty of episodes.
Maybe the next one.
Yeah. So keep your eyes. I'm not even going to tease it because then that would force me to do it. So.
Of course, right? So, but I'm sure it'll be worth it.
Now, so Paul, you're an actor.
That's correct.
Now tell me, how long have you been acting?
Oh, wow. Since I was 14, that was when I really got the bug and realized this is what I want to do.
Did you study it in school or anything?
I did. Since 14 on, I always made sure that I was involved in community theater and different stuff. I went to school. I got a B.A. in theater and English.
Great.
So it's legit.
And you're from Birmingham, Alabama?
Correct. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and been living in L.A. doing the thing.
How long? How long have you been in L.A.?
How long have I been here? It's going on 12 years.
Ooh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's home.
It is home. Yeah. You sound more LA than you do more Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, people say that all the time, but you will hear me say y'all.
Oh, okay, y'all.
Yeah, that's a nice contraction that you just, you have to use it.
If you want to find out more about Paul's acting, you can find him on Facebook at Facebook.com/ThePaulGalliano or on Instagram at ThePaulG. He's very active on that. You've got a show coming up, correct? Or you're in a show?
Correct. Yeah. It's a fun show. It's at the Odyssey Theater. It's playing now through the end of September.
And it's called Drama Queens from Hell?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me about that. What is that all about?
Okay, so the Drama Queens, there's 3 of them in the show, and they basically make my life a living hell. I'm the director of a Sunset Boulevard remake. And, of course, they are dying to play that role of Norma Desmond.
Of course.
But I don't think they're right for the role. And then their agent comes in and says, well, look, we'll sue you for discrimination if you don't see them. And so I have to see them. And then hilarity ensues from there.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
A little waiting for Goffman-y?
I would say there's aspects of it that, definitely have that kind of vibe. But it's definitely a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood.
That's very cool. And it goes up every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday through the end of September. And this is actually gonna air next week, so the first week of September. So if you're listening to this and you're in LA and you want to check out Paul's stuff, you have plenty of time. You got 3 more weeks to check it out.
Awesome.
3 more weeks.
That's right. Exactly.
That's 9
3 or 4. Yeah. It's a lot.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it's the Odyssey in West LA. Now, Paul.
Yes.
You also cosplay.
Yes, I do.
And that's what I want to talk about, because you mentioned to me that you do some G.I. Joe cosplaying, and I want to learn about that.
Absolutely. Well, the first this goes back to maybe, I don't know, I was really young. I don't remember, but my mom used to always make my Halloween costumes for me, and the one that I remember the most was Cobra Commander. And I did the hooded version because I couldn't figure out how to do the battle helmet. I know you're a fan of the hood.
The hood's the best.
Well, I prefer the battle helmet.
Oh, that's okay. Fair enough.
But so we went the
I
hood
think the
route.
hood's creepier.
It is.
The hood is like, I may be a serial killer. Like, I like that. Don't get me wrong, helmet's cool, but like helmet's like, I am from an industrialized nation who has come up with a substance that is both reflective and can see through.
Exactly.
The hood is like, I'm straight up murderer.
No, you're right. You're right. There's something extra creepy about it. But a couple of my friends though described the creepiness of the face shield though as just this like faceless menace. And and I said, yeah, that is kind of creepy because it could be anybody. I said, and I think I read somewhere that part of the concept for that too is that the reflectiveness of it is that whoever encounters the commander could also see themselves.
You see yourself in the commander.
Him.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with that. I've talked about that a little bit in the show. That is totally right, and I think that's why that mask works really well.
Yeah.
It's so funny because people have figured out how to do that mask for cosplay, and it looks really. I've seen it at tons of Comic-Cons, and it looks great. And then they do a movie. I'm like, oh, it's going to be amazing, right? If they can do it so well. And what did that garbage mask they gave
All right.
us?
Well, are you talking about Rise of Cobra?
The first one. Yeah.
Right.
Like
because,
that see-through kind of
weird.
Like,
and it was
what?
like, to me that looked like they took and mishmashed like the battle armor helmet with their own kind of clear design. And like, we're trying to do this thing. I was very disappointed.
Yeah. I'm like, of all looks, you see it looking so good done by amateurs,
right?
Cosplay amateur, and Hollywood comes along and nothing.
Right, they find a way to mess it up.
Now in part 2, it looked better. Right?
Oh
part 2, it was on point. Right,
I was pleased with that. I actually owned the replica of that leather trench coat that they made.
Oh, sweet.
That he wore, and then there were plans for them to do a replica of the actual helmet. But they lost company lost the license before that happened. So.
I do see over my shoulder you've got some sweet Cobra Commander statues, and it's like a little shrine to CC himself.
Absolutely, he is one of my all-time favorite characters. Even in the other room, I've got the huge Cobra Wants You poster where he's pointing out at the But so there's that, and I have going back to the cosplay thing though. I have since improved my my CC. Costume. And,
how so?
Well, I got a completely custom suit with an embroidered Cobra sigil. I went all out and got a Spanish. My look for my Cobra Commander cosplay is kind of more comic inspired, but there's nods to the animated show. But yeah, I got all the honor braids over the shoulder and the leather strap pieces, all those. I mean, I went all out. I spent a lot of money on that cosplay. And but you know what? It was totally worth it because I feel amazing when I'm wearing it, and I get great responses from it.
Where have you worn it to, like Kamikaze out here in LA or Long Beach?
I debuted that Commander at WonderCon 2014.
Okay.
That was my first con.
Oh,
that's
wow.
kind of what started it all. So I'm relatively new to the cosplay scene, but I love it.
I want to make sure that I get some photos from you. Share it on the Joe and Joe Instagram.
Of course, yeah.
And your cosplay stuff.
Yeah.
You also mentioned you do a Baroness.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, my most recent cosplay, Joe cosplay, was the Baron. And I'm going to show you. Here's my card.
Oh, you made a file card.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So that's something I do for every character I cosplay. I come up with a unique and original card to that's
so like
for when I cosplay the Joker.
When you're in cosplay. Oh,
it's a Joker playing card with my info, and then that's my Severus Snape card.
Nice.
Has the house crest. It says Snape, head of house.
Snape was Rickman, right? That was Alan Rickman's character.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Yeah, Harry Potter I missed.
Really?
The books were huge when I was getting out of college,
mm-hmm.
and I remember some friends were reading it, and I respect them. Like they were like, "Oh, these are really great," man. I never got into them, and then I didn't like the movies at all. Like there were a couple that were good.
Yeah,
there were a couple that were like The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Right,
I think was really
for me.
Good.
That's when it started getting good because it got a little more adult themed and a little darker.
Yeah,
and, but I didn't really care for the earlier ones either, just because it was so childish.
It just passed me by, so I don't know much about it, but I do know Alan Rickman because he was amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
so good.
And it's just it's amazing the responses that you get when you go to conventions. Like, people have identified with the character so much or have so much respect for that character, and they look at you and see. For me, cosplaying is also an extension of like my acting and performance. So I play the characters that I cosplay as. A lot of people don't do that. Some people do, but I love doing that.
That's great.
And it's a lot of fun. But yeah, the Baron. So that was I
love it.
Yeah,
so
that's
what we're looking at
that's
is
the
we're
gender
like
bent
a full
Baroness.
on like a full on file card all set up. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
What I did is I just looked at her original file card and kind of a tongue-in-cheek style, totally just tried to match it word for word as much as possible, but make it about me.
Yeah,
and
you're an Uzi expert, and you can drive a BMW. I like
right
that.
instead of a HISS tank.
Yeah, those are two important things for an actor here in LA: Uzi and BMW.
Yeah.
Now, what? Who are your acting influences?
Oh man, I love Mel Gibson as a performer. He has had some nasty stuff in the news,
but as a performer, he was on point.
Yeah, he used to. I mean, back in the days of MySpace, when it said heroes, I had personal heroes and professional heroes listed, and up until he had his little time, he was under my professional hero thing. But then I changed that, But love to watch him. I've never seen him take a wrong turn.
Well, he just always had a simmering rage that occasionally would pop out, but there's just all of his from Mad Max, obviously, to to the Lethal Weapon stuff, to even the Man Without a Face. I always liked. There was just always something behind his eyes, and I unfortunately I think we saw what it was.
Yeah, maybe
that's
it came out.
That's the unfortunate part. Is I think that's what it was. Just this really troubled dude who had a lot of troubling thoughts. But they say a lot of the best artists are heart troubled people, of course, and that might be a really great example of it.
I think so. But yeah, you're right about like bringing the rage. But that's the thing. He also brought those sentimental, emotional, tender moments too. Like that's one of the reasons I respect him as an actor. Is he covers the whole spectrum.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, G.I. Joe. You said to me before we started, you were watching it when you were a kid.
Yes.
Did you have the toys?
Yes. Funny thing too. So I was. It was a little before my time, so I kind of got on board because of my older brother in a little bit, and I used to love to watch it when it was coming on after Gem and the Holograms in the morning before school. So I'd wake up, only one up in the house, get my bowl of cereal, sit down, and I'd catch those end credits of Gem. Just in time to hear da-da-da-da-da, yo Joe. But yeah, so I actually to this day still have some of the toys, and it took me a while to get my favorite character, Cobra Commander, the battle helmet version.
Oh yeah,
because he was already out of print or whatever, not available by the time I started getting into it. And but however, I do remember getting the mail away hooded Cobra Commander.
That's the one I had.
Yeah. Which was awesome. So I was like, oh, I finally have a Cobra Commander figure. I had enough flag points, send them in. But the funny thing is, and I never understood how this miracle happened, but I'm waiting, and back then it felt like it took months for those things to come through. I get a letter, and it said, sorry, we ran out.
Oh, no.
And I was crushed. And then 2 days later, the figure arrived in the mail. So I don't know. I guess there was some mix-up at Hasbro about,
crazy.
But I was so relieved though, because I was, luckily at only 2 days, and then it arrived. So I was only crushed and depressed for 2 days. And
that used to be mailing away for stuff for kids these days who have the internet, and you just, kids like us with Amazon, one click, and you could literally have something the same day.
Yeah.
Mailings away for stuff was the most arduous, painful. I had a TIE fighter that my mom probably bought for us in probably 78, 79. And one of the wings, one of the struts for the wings, if you remember Star Wars TIE fighters, the wings popped off.
Yeah.
Like the battle damage. One of the struts broke. And instead of going to the store and buying one, I don't know why any adult didn't jump in and just buy a new TIE fighter.
Right.
We sent a letter to Mattel saying, hey, one of the struts broke. Can you send me a new strut?
What?
Now, I don't know. It was late 70s, early 80s. I think, maybe that's how things worked back then. I hounded the mailman for a year. Did I get anything from Mattel? Did I get anything from Star Wars? Did I get anything from Star Wars? I'm not kidding you, because I wasn't in school yet. I was only like 5 or 6.
Right.
I was home all the time, and every time the mailman came to the door, did I get anything from Star Wars? Did it come? Did it come? I can't tell you how many times I asked it. In retrospect, if I'm the parent, I'm just buying a new one.
Yeah.
I'm going to find $40 in the budget and get a new one just to shut me up, because I must have been obnoxious about it.
You know what, though? These days, though, you'd be lucky to find a TIE Fighter for $40, right?
Well, yeah. Right, totally.
Prices have gone up, so.
Eventually, when they started reissuing the Star Wars toys in the mid-'90s, I straight up just bought a Slave One.
Nice.
Even though I wasn't collecting Star Wars, I was at a Toys R Us, and I went, I've always wanted to own a Slave One. I'm an adult who has a job. I'm buying a Slave One. I came home with it. People were like, why do you have just a brand new Star Wars? I shut up. It's my Slave One.
Exactly. I bought it with my own money. Yeah, because I can. Heck yeah, man.
So we know, I'm not even going to ask the question. It sounds like Cobra Commander is absolutely your favorite Joe.
Yes.
Which version of Cobra Commander do you like the most? And I'll give you a few options.
All right.
So you've got the Cobra Commander from the comic book,
right?
Who we know was a car salesman.
Yes.
Whose brother was killed by Snake Eyes' family. And
yes.
Not killed by the family, but was drunk driving, hit Snake Eyes'
right.
family. That version who has the son Billy.
Send him over the edge.
We've got the cartoon Cobra Commander, who, based on that one episode recently where Destro saw his face and was revolted by it, and then fast forward to the movie where we find out that he's part Cobra, even though it's weird. He gets hit by the spores and then he turns into the snake.
Right, it's that mutation thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe he was part snake before, and that's what Destro was reacting to. But either way, the version of it that is somewhat reptilian or somehow related to that snake. We've got then the Joseph Gordon-Levitt Cobra Commander version.
Yep.
And then we've got, I think the fourth option I'm going to give you is the IDW version where he... spoiler alert, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. They eventually killed him, and they replaced him. The point being, Cobra Commander, there's been a Cobra Commander for hundreds of years, and there will always be a Cobra Commander. And so that's not necessarily the used car salesman guy. It's just a figurehead for this organization, which is ancient. So which one of those do you prefer?
Wow. I definitely prefer my Cobra Commander to be human. I mean, I'm a fan of the animated Joe, so of course I own G.I. Joe the movie. But I didn't like that turn. I like him to be human. I don't mind if he's disfigured. So I'm going to have to go with like the original concept for the animated series or G.I. Joe Retaliation. And the only reason, I mean, I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a decent performance, and I liked the voice that he used for it. But that, like we discussed, that costume, that character design was awful. So that's where I'm. Does that answer the question?
So you're going with Joe Retaliation? Is that what you're saying? Or are you going Joe comic?
No. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
You go Joe comic.
Yeah,
it sounds like you're describing Marvel Cobra
Yeah,
Commander.
I'm just getting into that though. But I like, and I know you mentioned this with one of your guests on a 20 questions, I think it was, where he talks about. And then I started a revolt in my military academy.
Yeah.
I kind of like that background of him too, that he does have like a military past, but also the used car salesman line with the storylines with Billy and all that. I mean, can I do the animated series and the comic book? Can that be my, or do I have to pick one?
I mean, listen, I suppose we're not buying a car with it, so yes.
Okay.
I can give you first season Cobra Commander
yes.
Crossed over with the real American hero Larry Hama Cobra Commander. How about that? The Hamaverse. Hamaverse crossover with first season Joe.
Like it. I'm happy.
Perfect. Done.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So with that in mind, today's episode is called Operation Mind Menace. And as we get into it, I have some mea culpas to make, literally from just the very last episode that published this week. But I'm excited. It involves some telepathy. And some like mutant comic booky things. So I think we're excited to get into it. Are you ready?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question before we actually dive in?
Go for it.
Because I have listened to the podcast and I'm a fan, so I want to geek out a little bit.
Okay.
If before we get into this, so Haul Down the Heavens. You mentioned that you felt like that the writers kind of borrowed from that episode for the Rise of Cobra.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The writers of the movie borrowed from the episode.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, because there is a specific shot. If you go back and look at Rise of Cobra, there's a specific shot where with the Aurora Borealis, the way they're flashing, it's a total nod to that episode.
Awesome.
So, and there's other little things
Thank
in
you.
there too, but and I loved how you were a synthoid at the end of Synthoid Conspiracy.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. I just had
Right?
I had a 2-week blackout.
Your wife comes in and like, oh, what's this mess? My husband was a synthoid.
That was because I had a friend cancel on me for a recording session, and I was a little like, I don't want to do this alone today. Let me have some fun with it. That's what that was.
It was great because it took
worked
me a
out,
minute to
yeah.
realize what was going on, and then I went, "Oh, that's clever, a Slepsky synthoid." And the last thing I wanted to say was for the Cobra's Candidate episode, which was amazing. And you were talking about how the writers use big words and stuff, and that kind of prompted you to seek knowledge and educate you a little bit when you were younger. And same thing, and I think that's great.
Cool. Well, tangent aside,
I know
we're gonna get into Operation Mind Menace.
Let's do it.
So let's do this.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. So this is the good stuff, but it's totally Duke's voice. It's totally Duke's voice coming out of Flint.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if Bill Ratner's like, oh, I could have got royalties,
a little
for
more
that.
money.
Yeah. So before we get into the show, I have to point out. So I do a Filecard feature every episode during the first commercial break, and last week I did Flash, who's the G.I. Joe laser trooper. He was the first laser trooper. When the team first started, right?
Yes.
And I'm talking about, they hardly feature Flash, and he didn't get a lot of play, and blah 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 blah. Literally, guess who's the co-star in this episode?
Are you serious?
Flash is the co-star of Operation Mind Menace.
All right. Well, see, and I don't really remember him, so I look forward to kind of rediscovering this character.
Like, I forgot this episode, and it's literally the next one. And I just randomly pick them every week. I go Joe to Cobra. And this episode stars 2 G.I. Joe members. There's more than 2 in it, but the 2 main characters are Airborne and Flash.
Interesting.
So all the, no, they never did anything with Flash stuff. Right there. There he is. Yeah. Boom. Oh, so I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's kind of forgettable.
Well,
no offense to him.
No, you know what it is, actually. So to open the show, Airborne and Flash are both flying in a Dragonfly. Flash is flying it, and Airborne's riding shotgun. And they're chasing a Cobra Fang, and the Fang has a woman tied to the strut, held captive. They're flying over an active volcano, and it's a good dogfight. Throw you right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
They suspect Cobra as a base around there. So there's a couple things about this episode. Look at Airborne. He's off model. When you see Airborne step out of the Dragonfly and all that stuff, he's not on model. That's not what Airborne looks like. In fact, multiple characters in this are a little off model.
Interesting.
Which makes me think this is a super, super early episode that they worked on. Because the focal point of the show, which is actually happening right now, there's a kid who is getting tested for ESP. If you remember Ghostbusters, the first one, 2 weeks in a row we're talking Ghostbusters.
I haven't seen it in a while.
Well, in Ghostbusters, if anyone remembers, Peter Venkman testing the students whether or not they can identify the card that he's holding up.
Okay.
That's what's going on here on this episode. And they say that this kid is Airborne's little brother.
Right.
So what I'm getting the vibe of, and again, I don't have to do a ton of research, this is a very comic booky plot. I have a feeling this is one of their early episodes before they really got into it being a little more grounded in reality, because they got superpowers in this,
Yeah.
All these people are basically X-Men.
Yeah, doesn't he make the cards float here?
He certainly does.
That's right, yeah.
So, this is all really X-Men-y, Stranger Things.
I just started the first
Isn't it
episode
great?
today. I didn't get too far into it, but yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So my theory on this is everyone's a little off model, and the plot itself is a little iffy.
Right.
So I have a feeling this is absolutely one of the early scripts that came in and the early animation on it.
Right.
Because there's a moment I'll point out, Storm Shadow shows up, and there's no recognition that it's Storm Shadow.
Really?
Yeah, like he's got a different
interesting.
voice. And
What?
they don't refer to, like, no one says, like, Storm Shadow, what are you doing? Like, it's
Right.
just
He's just the Cobra Ninja.
Yeah, so we're back to the Dragonfly battle. There's a bunch of fangs, by the way.
Yeah,
and,
this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and the fangs are crashing, parachuting out, everyone's surviving. And they're fighting around Stonehenge, of all places. When that's another thing that'll come up later, as to makes me think. Yeah, see how off model he is? He looks like a super friend outfit. The Airborne does.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because like he's one of the characters that I could, no offense, I could take or leave.
Yeah,
you know, so it's not bothering me that much, you know. But I notice from episode to episode, I notice every little detail that changes in Cobra Commander's animation.
Right,
so,
right.
You know,
so Airborne just got shot out of the sky with Flash, and then back at the base where it's Duke and Lady J hanging out with Airborne's little brother Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy's having like a psychic breakdown, and here we go. Check this out.
Who are you? What is the meaning of this?
Storm Shadow just busts
there
in.
He is the kid. He's the last
And he
one on
points
the
his
list.
sword. I'm sorry, it wasn't Storm Shadow's off-model voice. He just doesn't say anything.
Right.
You know, like they don't give Storm Shadow a voice, which is odd because
Very
Storm Shadow's Storm Shadow.
Right.
He's a major player, right?
Yeah.
So what happened is Storm Shadow and a bunch of Cobra Troopers bust in, and with them is some old man with a Cobra like headband on, and he's got a weird, like he's in like a sackcloth, right?
Yeah, it's like he's wearing a burlap sack
Yeah.
and a Cobra laser tag get up, you know.
Yeah. Now Storm Shadow is plying his Storm Shadowy trade, but he says nothing,
Not a word.
which is not the Storm Shadow that we know. You know, Storm Shadow's a little loquacious. But they're having a fight in the hallway, and they tell this old man to use his power. And his eyes start glowing,
Yeah.
and he shoots fire from that Cobra thing on his head,
Yeah.
which Duke
Wraps-
tries to shoot.
I never caught that before. Yeah, he totally shot his gun at it, his
Duke's
laser.
like, here comes a wall of fire. Let me shoot it.
Kinda lassoed him around.
Yeah.
With his brain.
So they're getting smoked out by the fire and everything.
Case,
Yeah,
we
the
got
animation
big
looks,
trouble.
it just looks different.
Even if we do get out of here,
I'll try not to harp on that too much, but I have a feeling that's what's going on. But we're going to go into commercial with Duke and Lady J dying from asphyxiation. Today's Filecard Feature is on the Battle Android Trooper, also known as BATs. These are the Cobra robot soldiers. BATs were designed by the eccentric scientist Dr. Mindbender. They are mindless robotic automatons with but one directive: destroy anything in their path, most notably G.I. Joe. They make for excellent soldiers in that they never tire, nor do they question orders or surrender, and can be cheaply replaced if destroyed. It was for these reasons that Cobra allowed Mindbender to join them, bringing his BATs and their designs with him. The BATs have been used on numerous occasions by Cobra. However, regular Cobra troops hate to fight side by side with them in the field. The major flaw in the BAT's programming is that they often can't distinguish between friend and foe. They're programmed to simply eliminate, and if a Cobra trooper happens to stumble into one of their paths, the outcome is often grim. They also have an unfortunate tendency to burst into flame when hit from behind. Quote, BATs are dangerous to everybody. They'll shoot, bayonet, or kick anything in sight. Cobra infantrymen don't like to be on the same battlefield with BATs. When a Cobra unit is losing in a battle, they will dispense BATs in the midst of the firefight by kicking them out of low-flying aircraft without parachutes, a sight that's quite demoralizing to the opposing troops. I feel like the show could have used less parachutes and more BATs at this point. In the comic books, there have been multiple versions of it. The toys have had multiple iterations of it, kind of like Iron Man's Mark armors. I always liked the BATs. I always enjoyed using them on the battlefield, and certainly in the cartoon, you can see more destruction. You can see the Joes having more effect with their attacks when they were fighting BATs, because things would actually get destroyed. Battle Android Trooper, whatever mark you're on, whatever iteration you're at, we salute you. 1001 110 101.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
See, this is the part of the show when someone should run in and like Roadblock and say, "Hey man, you gotta stop, drop, and roll." And then be like, "Thanks, Roadblock." You
We
know,
know where's
now
barbecue when
and
you need
yeah,
it.
right, yeah, barbecue would do it. Yeah, totally would be barbecue. Like, stop, drop, and roll. Thanks, barbecue. And now you know, and knowing's half the battle. Like, that's what should have happened right there.
Yeah, but you're right. Roadblock always does things with more style.
Yeah, well, I mean, Roadblock's the best. Yeah. So Flash and Airborne are washed up on shore, and they get confronted by a bunch of Cobra soldiers. And apparently, Cobra is just taking over Easter Island.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what it looks like. Totally. Yeah. I'm like sitting there going, "What the heck?"
You see this animation? Just, I'm sorry, I can't not point it out. It's just it's odd.
It's a little staccato, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just odd. Maybe it was done by a different animation house. But I love it. Flash is getting a ton of action, and Airborne's having like headaches. So basically, Airborne and his little brother are they're having that same Tomac Zaymot relationship.
I was just thinking that, like the psychic link.
Yeah, they did a cool thing. The Cobra, the soldiers have the red Cobra, and then the officer has the white Cobra on his chest, which is kind of neat.
There they are. Come on.
Right behind
Jay
you,
and
Duke.
Duke they're chasing after the Cobra plane with Wild Weasel, and
Yeah.
Destro, which is awesome. It's always good to see Wild Weasel. What was your favorite airplane for Joe's growing up? Like, what was your like
The Rattler.
the Rattler? That was
Yeah.
your jam.
Oh man, yeah.
So you were just a Cobra guy.
You know what? It's funny. That's what I tell people a lot. I'm like, I'm not necessarily a G.I. Joe fan as much as I am a Cobra fan. I'm not necessarily a Batman fan as much as I am a Rogues Gallery fan. You know, I've always liked the villains. Look in that case behind you. It's
Yeah,
all villains.
that is true.
You won't find a good guy in there.
That is true. What version of Joker do you cosplay as?
Classic. Classic comic book.
So
Joker.
like Brian Boland.
I just did the Killing Joke version at San Diego Comic-Con, and I like to think that I got a little Neil Adams look to me sometimes too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is the Jerry Robinson Joker card, by the way.
Absolutely. I got a chance to meet Jerry a couple years ago before he passed. I think it was 2008 at the San Diego Con.
Yeah.
And I walked. It was the DC area, and there was it was the preview night, and so there weren't a ton of people there. But in this area, there were a bunch of fans just milling around, and they were meeting, Dan DiDio and various other current creators. Everyone's great, but sitting at a table completely unaccosted by anybody, just minding his own business, Jerry Robinson.
People just didn't know.
They just I looked over and I recognized him immediately, and I went, "You're Jerry Robinson." He's like, "Yeah, I am." I'm like, "Oh my god!"
I think I'll park it here and talk to this guy for a little
"Can I
bit.
talk to you? He's like, "Of course."
Awesome.
So I talked to Jerry Robinson for a bit and got a nice autograph from him and stuff. And
Very cool.
Just the nicest dude. Like, just was like, I was like, "Dude, you made the Joker." Like,
Yeah.
what?
Don't you love that though when they turn out to be just good people?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And conversely, sometimes you get some pieces, and sometimes when people say like, "Oh, they were a jerk" or whatever, you might have caught them on a bad day. You always got to take that into account. However, sometimes I do take that into account, and I go, "You know what? You still might have been a bit of a jerk." but even then, though, to be honest, you never know what's going on in someone's personal
It's
life.
true.
They may be having a bad day. They may be having, by and large, the majority of the creators and people I've met out here, and it's just been gracious and nice. And
Same here.
if you meet a celebrity and you act like a normal human,
Right.
tell them you appreciate the stuff they do, you get a great
Yeah.
exchange.
Yeah, I would say that my experience is the same. The majority of people, celebrities you encounter, they're cool, and even like working on sets and stuff too. I've never had a bad experience.
What kind of sets have you worked on?
Well, I was on Entourage,
Nice.
and I did a scene with Kevin Dillon and Michael Hitchcock.
Sure.
And going back to Guffman, we've come full circle with our reference now. But yeah, and Kevin Dillon was so cool. Like, I was just the co-star role, and this was like the first legit thing I ever did when I moved to LA. So it was like exciting for me. And
Yeah, that's
I'm
great.
a bit part, but we had dialogue, and when we were driving over in the transpo vehicle to set, he actually says, "So in the scene, like, do you care if I like try this or that, or is this?" And I'm like, Man, I'm here to support you. Like, this is your scene. Like,
Sure.
of course, but you're super cool to even ask me that. But like, wow, just no, do your thing.
That's
I
awesome.
will work around you. But he was so chill.
He strikes me because he's been. I mean, he's obviously his brothers.
Yeah.
You know, Matt Dillon and
Right.
huge and stuff. But you look at Kevin Dillon's career; he's been in a ton of stuff going back to the early days.
Yeah.
And so it's like I feel like he's just been a working actor that he strikes me as someone who would then be very cool.
Yeah.
You know, because he doesn't. I mean, obviously he was huge on Entourage, but he knows what it is to go and just work a day and move on.
Because he's been there and he respects the journey.
Yeah, so let's check in on the show real quick.
Yes.
Flash and Flash and Airborne have been captured, and this is the other part of the show which makes me go, yeah, this was before they kind of figured out what the show was. The heads of Easter Island have now emerged from the ground as giant monsters. It's a little. I mean, it's it's not the Joe that I love,
Right.
but it is the hallmarks of. Okay, so let's look at the things that this episode has that came from the miniseries, right? Destro's got a device that can command people's actions, which was from the miniseries.
Yeah, the technology.
Yeah, right. You've got giant robot monsters. I don't know if these are robots or whatever they are, but giant, like
just
giant
some kind of giant menacing figure.
Yeah, like a menacing figure that's not necessarily a human issue. Like it's there was that temple.
There were several in the
there were
miniseries.
several. So we're going to go to commercial. We'll discuss this when we come back.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe.
Cobra's attacking our winter outpost. Call in the members of the G.I. Joe team.
And here's Gung Ho, Airborne, Doc, and Snow Job. And every Joe has a two-handed battle grip.
Get aboard the Battle Bear. It's G.I. Joe to the rescue.
G.I. Joe, American hero.
We chased off Cobra. Way to go, Joe.
G.I. Joe Battle Bear, Joe and Cobra figures each sold separately from Hasbro. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
So this is like if I'm in the writer's room and I'm saying, hey, we're doing this new show, G.I. Joe. Well, what's it about? Well, we only have these first couple miniseries that to write.
Right. Yeah.
And these are the only examples to use. I'm 100% writing this show.
Oh yeah.
Like this is the show that
Yeah,
emerges.
it kinda does,
If you really only watch those first few miniseries, this is the show that happens. So for that, I totally respect it, and it's fun. And and they're also because they're featuring the early cast. I don't think they got the memo that the Flash toy didn't sell.
Yeah, but like you said, was he one of the original 12, right? Or was it 12 or 13?
Something like that.
12, right? Somewhere around there.
Hawk came with one of the guns. I don't know if they count him in or something.
And that was back when he was just in his plain green.
Yeah, Flash was one part of the original.
Okay.
And I think Airborne was too.
I think so. I know Rock and Roll was.
Rock and Roll, yeah. Like all those green shirt guys.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll, Grunt, Zap, Flash, Bazooka, Breaker.
Was it Bazooka? It
Yeah,
was Bazooka?
Bazooka was one of the early ones, yeah. Bazooka, Breaker, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Stalker.
Yeah, Stalker.
If I were counting them on my hand, we would know how many we just counted.
That's okay.
but they were either in the. I'm almost positive Flash was in the first run, and I think Airborne was in like either if not the first one, the second run. But very early Joes, and then they weren't. By the time they got to making these regular episodes, it was Flint and Lady J's turn.
Right. Yeah.
So Lady J's in this, but she might as well be Scarlet, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was originally written as to be Scarlet.
Really? And they just
then
said,
when
no,
they go into production, hey, let's use Lady J.
Interesting.
Right.
That's a very good point.
So Storm Shadow's in this episode, but he doesn't say anything because they didn't define him as a character,
You'll
right?
all be helping defend.
You know what I
yeah,
mean? So like
yeah.
when they get around to animating it, hey, let's throw Storm Shadow in there, but he doesn't say anything
No, it's
because he wasn't introduced yet.
it's bizarre. He usually has some kind of
when this would have been written. These are all by the way,
Right.
these are all theories. Correct?
No, and I love your theories going all the way back to like the crater, the meteor from Cybertron. Yeah,
right,
dude.
That's my favorite thing.
That's so cool.
I want to know why that hasn't cracked the internet yet, because I really, when I thought of that, I was like, "Holy cow, that's amazing!"
It is. It's awesome.
It's the mass device. So
That's totally supernatural.
totally. So the Joes are it's Stalker, and that's one of the early ones too. I can't.
Yeah,
tell
I
if that's
can't tell
Grunt.
either with the
It's like Grunt or Zap or something. But they're on a polar battle bear, which also was one of the first toys, like first weapons or vehicles. That's the word I'm looking for, vehicles. And this woman kind of uses her like spirit self to possess the polar battle bear and knocks it off.
Come on.
So
and it explodes, of course.
And of course it explodes. Every good vehicle in every cartoon and frankly live action show from the 80s explodes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever you say, pal.
So and that's the other thing where there's just these like superhero-esque characters, you know? Like, even in the Joe comics, I can't honestly think of anyone that ever had like superpowers. Can you?
No, I think the closest they came to it was Zartan, but even in the comics, they explain that as technology.
Yep.
They
totally.
do. Yeah.
So this is so what's happening is the Joes are attacking this bunker, and one by one, there's Blowtorch. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
One by one, they're encountering these possessed, like super soldiers, basically. And Blowtorch luckily runs into the guy with fire because he can drive right through it because he's wearing a fireproof suit.
But he jumps off.
And he jumped off. But when he jumped off, it was Ace that jumped off.
Oh.
Did you see that?
I didn't catch that.
When this episode's over, we're gonna rewind.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up and give a little wrap up. I'm pretty sure that was Ace that jumped off, which tells me that they reanimated this to get Blowtorch, to get a later character, because Blowtorch was a later character. We're going to rewind this, and we'll talk about this.
That's very interesting.
We'll touch on this.
See, my logic was just like, oh, they got confused because of the mask. You know, used to seeing him wear that in the Skyhawk, not Skyhawk, Sky Striker.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I mean, it might have just been a miscoloring thing. I might have seen it wrong, but we're going to find out.
No, but I bet you're right, too.
Well, Duke and Airborne land, and they parachute onto the top of the thing, and Airborne can sense his brother Tommy. So they're going to rush down and bust into the temple. There's your guy, Cobra Commander.
Yes, wearing the
he's
hood.
Wearing the hood, though. He's not wearing the mask.
He had it on earlier, though.
He did have it on earlier. And there's my boy Destro.
Right?
So awesome.
Arthur Burghardt. What a voice.
He's just so awesome. So that's the other thing I don't do. I know Bill Ratner a little bit from working on podcasts and stuff. Super nice dude. Really nice guy. But I should be paying more attention to the voice actors because they're the heroes of the show. They're the best.
Yeah, I mean,
they're totally the best.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
so great. Though, it's
so memorable.
Snow Job, he's getting wrapped up. Oh man, see, like that looks like something out of Masters of the Universe.
I was just thinking that's a very He-Man thing to stop those giant jaws from collapsing.
Well, what's so funny is look at the trip. If that jaw closed, it would just close.
Well, his feet though.
He could step back.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
Know what I'm saying?
Jump out of there.
There's giant jaws, but there's no mouth. Like,
right, the old man's behind it. You're right. He's out of harm's way.
You could let Torch. You could let that fall. You know, just saying.
Relax. I was waiting for that classic old school cartoon line though. Can't hold it much longer. You know.
Yeah. It's the best. It's the best. He is using his connection to his brother to like radar to find him in his base.
Don't you remember? You gave me that name.
So Tommy's hiding behind they got like a shield, like an energy shield that's protecting him. Do we know? Oh, that's what Tommy's doing. I was just gonna say, what is Tommy doing? So Tommy's causing all these like giant mouths, and a big hand just came out of the wall. That's all Tommy's doing, and so he's the most powerful guy.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
It's kind of like a Green Lantern-esque kind of power, wouldn't you say?
Very Green Lantern-esque. Yeah.
Shit, I never wanted it like this. Tommy, you made this for me.
The sentimental moment.
Airborne carries around a model toy of a Dragonfly helicopter, just in case he needs to snap Tommy out of it. And the sight of his brother doesn't snap him out of it, but the sight of a model that he put together does.
It's the loving history that went into making that model for your big brother, and that's our sentimental moment that pulls him out of the trap.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Taking control.
But having said that, I always, even as a kid, watching when there was those moments where like love conquers all, and you can defeat this, I always kind of rolled my eyes. Even as a kid.
Yes, Cobra Commander.
And the Cobra soldiers talk a lot, which they don't talk a lot in later episodes.
Yeah, I was noticing they are very verbose in this.
And now we're at the Washington Monument for no reason.
Absolutely, yeah. We just
Why not have the denouement at the Washington Monument? Let's just do it.
thank goodness there was a hot dog vendor here.
Yeah, right?
In an ESP experiment. Turn them down? You know something, kid? You read my mind.
Oh, dude, is there anything better than the taglines at the end of the Joe episode?
I love that. They all got to end with a chuckle.
They're always so good. They're always so good. There's always some like, oh, you never should have done that. Should I have? Burker. So, man, that's it.
I can't believe how fast it went by.
I know. It flies, doesn't it?
It did. It was fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. So what did you think of this episode?
You know, that's funny because there was quite a bit of Cobra Commander in here, and I tend to jump around from my favorite Cobra Commander episodes, and this is one that I pass over a lot because I didn't remember him being that present. But I think this is one that I will add to the lineup now when I'm going back.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you've got this box set, right?
I sure do.
Do you watch them?
I haven't in a while because I wore them out so much. I've had it for years, and I wore them out so much. That's why, actually, I'm on to the comics now. Is because I wore these out so much. I went through, Resolute, Renegades, G.I. Joe Retaliation, live action. I just wore all those things out, and then I needed something new to quench my thirst for Cobra and G.I. Joe, So that's why I was like, all right, I'm going to read the comics now.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So here it is. We're watching this. That's Ace.
You're totally right.
That's
it's
totally
Ace. It was Ace.
Okay. So that was totally Ace that just jumped off that.
It had the ribbing
Yeah,
and the
it had
costume
the ribbing
and
and
everything.
he had the full Ace face mask. That tells me 100% this show was done for an earlier run, and then they inserted the new characters. That's why the voices are right for the Joes. Totally, the voices are on point.
Yeah.
But there's Storm Shadow doesn't say anything,
which is odd.
Yeah. It's Lady J and Duke paired up, which probably I'll bet you dollars to donuts, which was the phrase we got from Larry Hama.
Yeah,
that it totally was Scarlet and Duke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, done. I feel justified.
Yeah, no, you were right about that. You called it.
Boom. All right, well, Paul, thank you so much for joining me on Joe and Joe this week. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, are you kidding, man? Yeah, I've been looking forward to this ever since we met at Golden Apple, so thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And remember, you can find out more about Paul at Facebook / The Paul Galliano and on Instagram at The Paul G. And you can reach me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Joe on Joe Pod. You could also send me an email at joeandjoepod@gmail.com if you're a fan of the show and you want to guest star on it. I'm happy to have you. We can do it remotely, or we can do you out here in LA. So, with that in mind, thank you for listening. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.